Hello all of you wonderful people, Jules here for whatculture.com, and I am here today to talk to you about Deadpool, or more specifically how, thanks to a lot of different comic lines, the Merc with a mouth has had it pretty rough sometimes. He might appear on the surface to be all bullets and bad one-liners, but he's been through the absolute ringer more than once, and it's certainly left scars that even his super quick healing abilities can't deal with. From the loss of everyone that he's ever cared about to his failed attempts at suicide, the mutant formerly known as Wade Wilson has had to deal with quite a lot in his unnatural life. So let's share some of his worst moments in the hopes that we too might better understand him. As I'm Jules, this is whatculture.com, and these are the 10 worst things that have ever happened to Deadpool. Number 10. Betrayed by all of his friends. Deadpool 2008, issue 36. The red and black mercenary has continually drifted from supergroup to supergroup across his time, and even left the bonds of terra firma to team up with the likes of aliens and mercs from other planets in the hopes of finding a place to belong. And yet, Pool's circle of real friends is actually surprisingly shallow. In some ways, he's brought this on himself, as the few people that he did consider to be his closest allies were also the people that he had continually abused in quite horrific ways, simply because he is, for lack of better words, insane and took things too far. This cycle of abuse exploded into a massive battle between Wade and all of his ex-best friends, ranging from Bob the Hydra agent and Blind Al to Taskmaster and even Weasel, each with their own personal vendetta against the immortal and immoral Deadpool. This battle ended with Wade being shot to pieces by everyone who was left alive after the fight, but since he couldn't die, everyone left Wade alone and completely unsatisfied, filled with the knowledge that now he was literally alone and that no one in the universe liked him beside the fans that were reading the comics. He was pretty upset. And oh man, that kind of sucks. Number 9. He was divorced by his demonic wife. Deadpool 2015, issue number 29. Now here's the thing, Wade, despite looking like a zombie's ball bag and having a personality more grating than Gilbert Gottfried grating himself with a cheese grater, God, can you imagine that noise? He still has managed to find more than a few women to share his bed, and one of the most recent and most famous examples was Shikla, who he would end up making his wife. This empress of the monster world found Wade to be quite attractive, eventually leading to a marriage that set a Guinness World Record for the most comic book characters on a single cover. And while their relationship was far from perfect, it still managed to include some very sweet and tender moments. However, that all ended when Deadpool found her in bed with a werewolf. No, I'm deadly serious, and this started a war between her monster armies and his human allies. After all he'd been through, to then be betrayed by the one person who seemed to accept and love him, it must have been absolutely gutting. Number 8. Atomized by the Hulk. Deadpool 2008, issue number 39. When you have a healing factor that can regenerate you from a literal pile of ash and have also been cursed by Thanos to never die even without a healing factor, suicide is the one thing that is quite literally impossible to do. Yet Deadpool tried his absolute hardest to do so via the angriest being in the universe, the Hulk. Wade figured, after discussing the topic of suicide with his fellow immortal mutant Wolverine, that the only way to truly die is to be taken apart down to the atom by the Incredible Hulk. However, at this point, the Hulk and Bruce Banner were sharing the same mindset, meaning that there was no way to make Bruce that angry enough to even damage Deadpool for an hour. But with the help of a few Russian nukes, as you do, the Hulk and Wade eventually became tangled in a deadly conflict that accidentally put the lives of an entire preschool in danger. Long story short, it ended with the Hulk calming down, but not before delivering a blow to Wade that killed him for a week before he reassembled. Number 7. Locked up in an asylum. Deadpool 2008, issue 40. Deadpool is arguably one of the most unstable characters in the Marvel Universe, even more so than Moon Knight or even Carnage, so it came as no surprise when he was eventually thrown into a mental institution after pushing Captain America too far. And here's the thing, had the facility helped him, who knows what type of man Wade would have become. However, the experience was not a positive one, with guards and supervillain inmates attacking him regularly. The only person that seemed to actually focus on helping Wade to overcome his mental crisis was his assigned psychologist, Dr. Whitby. And Dr. Whitby tried to make Wade accept the horrors of the people that he killed, but over time it was revealed that she had fallen madly in love with him and even helped him to escape, preventing Wade from achieving any sort of breakthrough. And when you consider things like that, that's really sad. Number 6. Absorbing another person's voice into his head. Deadpool 2008, issue number 1. The start of a new Deadpool comic run in 2008 began with Wade's regeneration power being pushed to its absolute limit, after he and a fellow immortal Madcap were reduced to ashes by the mighty Avenger Thor's lightning. The regeneration factors of Deadpool and Madcap activated at the same time, fusing the pair into a single being, with Wade getting his body back, but also gaining two voices in his head, Madcap's and his own internal monologue. These pair of comic book text boxes, one in white and one in dark yellow, would constantly talk with Wade inside his head, offering helpful insight or just comedic observations that were meant to be more for the reader than for Deadpool himself. This went on for years, until eventually Madcap was released from his mind and regenerated into his own body. But my god, imagine that, another person rolling around in your brain, and it's not one that exactly offers the kind of support and advice that you'd want in a pinch. Plus, I don't even want to think of what Madcap saw while in Wade's body. His search history alone would make me want to pass out. Number 5. He killed the entire Marvel Universe twice. Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe. With a name like that, at least the arc followed through on its premise, right? And this too resulted from another voice creeping into the head of the dead. This internal monologue wanted just one thing: to kill everyone. Oh dear indeed. From Spider-Man and Doctor Doom to Howard the Duck and even Galactus, Deadpool carved a bloody path showing how complicit the heroes and villains of the world had grown in their belief that they could never be killed. This rampage was eventually stopped, but it wasn't the last one, as in Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe Again, we saw Wade turn into a puppet for the supervillains of the world led by Red Skull, and here he slaughtered every single superhero until he was reset with a trigger word that turned him against the villains as they celebrated their victory. By the end of both stories, Wade was left covered in blood, wishing for the same thing that he always wanted: punishment for his sins, which alas never came, because there was, in fact, more killing to be done, which leads me to my next entry. Number 4. He killed every multiverse version of himself. Deadpool kills Deadpool. So imagine the scene: you've just killed every single Marvel hero and villain. What do you do now? Well, if you're Deadpool, you start thinking. And you start to realize that as he is a comic book character, he will never be able to die because your popularity will keep you alive. But how do you prove this? Well, by killing every other Deadpool in the multiverse and seeing if the writers actually intervene to stop you. This plan ended up dividing the multiverse of Deadpools, with those who wanted to die and those who did not on opposing sides. Both armies decimated each other until there were only two Deadpools left, the one that wanted to destroy the multiverse and our Deadpool from Earth 616. Our version won out, however, because, you guessed it, the writers made him win, proving the Deadpool who wanted to destroy everything right. And so our Deadpool is posed a question: kill yourself and end the arc and all the suffering of every hero and villain that is kept alive solely for the entertainment of the readers, or walk away? And our Deadpool? He walked away. Number 3. Agent Emily Preston's death. Deadpool 2012, issue number 5. Just when Wade Wilson was finally freed from the never-ending voices in his head, yet another babbling brook was shoved inside him. Seriously, it's like a very exclusive and very fleshy club up in there. This specific voice came from S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Emily Preston, who is arguably one of the most beneficial voices that Deadpool has ever had the pleasure to talk with. She was forced to live inside Wade's twisted mind for a good couple of months thanks to being killed during a fight with all of the resurrected presidents of the United States. And yes, I know that sentence is mad, but this is comics after all. The guilt Wade felt about Preston's death and the fears surrounding her eventual departure made Wade live constantly on the edge, worrying that the one person who would be nothing but nice and supportive to him would finally leave as well. And yet it would actually be Wade himself that would end up breaking the bond they shared, for it was he that turned over Preston to Captain America during the Secret Empire arc after he had killed Agent Coulson and was brought in for his crimes. And trust me, he committed a lot of horrible actions in Secret Empire, and now, thanks to his choices, he was left alone once more. Number 2. He lost his chance to have a family. Deadpool 2012, issue number 16. After the same secret organization that was responsible for creating Deadpool targeted him alongside fellow super soldiers Captain America and Logan, Wade ended up being taken to a rogue science camp in North Korea, where he found thousands of enslaved Korean men, women, and children who had all been fused with stolen powers from the X-Men and Deadpool's broken healing factor. After being told about a woman he had met many years ago had given birth to a child that was most likely his, Wade completely shut down mentally, almost unable to function. But thanks to the help of the other prisoners and his super pals, the camp was overthrown in a bloody uprising, during which the North Korean military began executing the families hidden in the mountainside base. Wade and Captain America were able to save some of the innocent families, but plenty more were burned alive with flamethrowers, including Deadpool's own. His hopes to finally meet a family that he never knew about turned to literal ashes after finding the mother of his child dead inside a mass grave. Oof. And number 1, his cancer. Deadpool 1994, issue number 1. Arguably, the worst thing that ever happened to Deadpool was the cruel twist of fate that put him on the path to becoming the foul-mouthed and unstable mess that we know today. Because put simply, without his cancer, nothing else that happened in the 29 years since would have ever come to pass. His insanity, his continual loss of family, friends, and loved ones, his lack of any chance of having a normal life, of being trapped in a constantly rotting body while being tormented with not being able to die and end his suffering, all of this came from something that affects thousands of people in the real world, something that we still can't definitively cure, nor is cured in the fantastical world of Marvel. Wade Wilson lives every second in turmoil because of a very real and very threatening disease, and what many see to be an amazing superpower, his healing factor, actually comes at the expense of watching everything else around him wither and die. Honestly, for all the jokes and ridiculous over-the-top action that he experiences, his very existence is complete and utter pain. And there we go, those were the 10 worst things ever to have happened to Deadpool. I hope that you, I was going to say enjoyed this, but I hope that you enjoyed this from an entertainment perspective. I mean, we detail some pretty horrible stuff there. And please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. If you want to chat to me further about comics, movies, TV, video games, wrestling, anything else, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ0. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. We detailed a lot today about how Wade Wilson had suffered through a lot in his life. And this is the thing, a lot of these things were incredibly unfair, unjust things that were put upon him, and that can sometimes happen to us in the real world as well. Sometimes life just is not fair in the slightest, and therefore sometimes we could all use a helping hand once in a while. I mean, especially with things that are going on right now, it might feel that you're more isolated than ever before, but trust me, you are not alone. Friends, family, professionals in the support industry, all of us care about you and want you to do well. So if you're struggling, please voice your concerns, reach out and speak to people. I know it can be difficult sometimes, but once you begin that discourse, I promise you, things will start to get easier as you start to piece things together and understand what's going on. I hope that you're well and treating yourself fairly as best you possibly can. Remember, you're an absolute ledge. Now go out there and smash it. As always, I've been Jules. You have indeed been awesome. Never forget that. And I'll speak to you soon. Bye.